About 3 years ago, we set ourselves a challenge to reach 1 million paying subscribers at the FT, and we aimed to get there by 2020. And just a couple of weeks ago, we hit that target of 1 million paying subscribers, more than a year ahead of schedule. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the North Star metric at the heart of the FT's success, how the FT pulls together to drive the same metric, which in turn drives our subscription business. For those of you who don't know us, the FT by heritage is a newspaper, but by business we are a digital-based subscription company. We sell digital subscriptions. We have those 1 million paying subscribers. More than 800,000 of those are digital-only subscribers. And in the meantime, around 11.4 million people see us every month. But any of you who have come across the FT online will know that we operate behind a strict paywall. And that's a very, very deliberate strategy, and I'm going to talk you through how we encourage people to buy subscriptions and, most importantly, stick with us. And the way that we do that is by a really, really tight focus on a North Star metric that drives our business. We looked at lots of different things that could have driven our business. We looked at revenue, we looked at usage, we looked at cancellation rate, and we looked at conversion rate, and all sorts of other factors. And unsurprisingly, the biggest factor that determines whether an FT subscriber will continue to stay with us is how engaged they are with our content, how much value they're getting out of their FT subscription. Because with the remarkable exception of gym membership, people don't continue to pay for subscriptions that they don't get value out of. If people aren't using us on a regular basis, when it comes to renewal time, they'll be thinking, hang on a second, am I getting value for money? We're not cheap, we're an expensive subscription. And so if they're not engaged, they'll churn. But by contrast, if they are engaged, if they are getting value, they will stick with us for a very, very long time. And the reason why engagement is so important is because our biggest competitors are not other publishers here in the UK. You'll be listening to Condé Nast later this morning. It's not publishers here in the UK or publishers in the US like the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or the New York Times. Our biggest competition is attention. We are all incredibly busy people. The people who read the FT are like the people here in the room. We are spending our entire time in writing emails, in meetings, here at conferences, writing strategy papers, and we have to justify every minute that our readers choose to spend with the FT. And so in order to compete, we looked at how we could tell if people were getting value out of that FT subscription. And we looked at lots of different factors. We looked at whether people had the app, we looked at whether they were sharing stories, we looked at the time spent, the time that they spent with us. And when it all came down to it, there were 3 factors that really determined whether people were getting value out of that very expensive FT subscription. And those are recency, frequency, and volume. So how recently people came to the site, the frequency with which they come in any given time period, and then finally the volume of content that they consume when they get there. And then those are all mushed together into a single figure, so every single FT subscriber has their own engagement score. And we know that if we can tip them over the remarkably precise figure of 18.2, they become engaged subscribers. And you can move that metric by moving any one of those 3 factors. So if people tend to visit us on a Monday or Tuesday but don't visit us at the weekend, if we can get them to come at the weekend, that will improve their recency. If we can get them to come more times in a month, say so if they're visiting us 6 times a month, if we can get them to visit us 8 times a month, that increases their frequency. And then finally, volume, how much content they consume when they get there. And that means that if you can move any one of those 3 factors, you'll drive the recency, frequency, and volume, you'll drive their RFE, you'll drive their engagement, and reduce the likelihood that those customers will churn. Now, as I said, I run the product and technology team at the Financial Times, and I'm just going to talk you through some examples of what we've done to drive that metric and what that's done to develop our business and get us towards those 1 million paying subscribers. So a couple of years ago, we set out to build a feature called My FT, which is, if any of you use the FT will know, is a very, very simple personalization mechanism. If you tell us what companies, what entities, what topics you're interested in, we'll personalize your experience on ft.com and the apps, and we'll also send you emails when new content is published about topics that you're interested in. Now, our hunch was, our hypothesis was, that if we made a more personalized Financial Times experience, that people would get greater value out of it and they would become more engaged. And we found that people who use My FT were more engaged. But we're smart people, you're smart people, everybody knows that correlation is not causation. What we really wanted to know is, does the act of becoming a My FT subscriber make you more engaged? So what we did is we looked at 2 cohorts of people who had similar engagement patterns, some of whom went on to become My FT users and some of whom didn't. And what we found was that the mere act of becoming a My FT user increased engagement by 86%. Now that's an absolutely enormous number. And interestingly, it's getting bigger, because when we first ran that data more than a year ago, the differential was about 30%. But that's still a big number, that's really exciting. So we say, okay, becoming a My FT user makes you more engaged. Engagement drives retention, reduces churn. Therefore, what we need is more My FT users. So we went out to get more My FT users. And by doing that, we found people who were less engaged in the first place. The first cohort were early adopters, big users of the FT. But when we got new users to use My FT, the headroom for them to grow was bigger, and therefore the engagement increase got bigger. And now we found that if you become a My FT user, that increases your engagement by 86%. Another experiment that we did was around speed. So when we rebuilt ft.com, our hypothesis was that if people spent more time looking at content and less time looking at a spinny buffer wheel, that they would be more engaged because they would be consuming more content. So we set out to build the fastest publishing site in the world, and we did that. But as soon as we'd done that, we slowed it down again. So we then ran a multivariate test where we gave different people different versions of the site, one that was 1 second faster, 2 seconds faster, and so on. And what we found was that by speeding up the site by 1 second, we would increase engagement across the board by 5%. Now that's not as big as My FT, but remember, the users had to do nothing at that point. The site just got faster, their engagement went up by 5%. And because we know the relationship between engagement and retention, we can then work out what that 1 second of speed is worth to us at the Financial Times. And it turns out that 1 second increase in speed is worth millions of dollars to the FT. Now that's really, really important because it allows you to do 2 things. It allows you to justify that investment of speed, so we had a team whose sole job it was to make the site as fast as possible, but it also changes the kind of conversation that you're having around putting more features on the site. Because if you put a feature on the site, one of those legendary 1 line of code on your site, and it slows your site down by 1 second, you better be sure at the FT that it's worth millions of dollars to you. Otherwise it's not worth it. It changes the conversation because you can have a data-driven conversation about the value of the things that you're doing. A more recent example that we built that has driven engagement is a thing called Topic Tracker. Now, Topic Tracker was aimed at solving this particular problem, which is people felt that there was lots of valuable content, but they were using the FT for business purposes, but didn't really understand where their knowledge stood. They didn't understand how much content, or whether they've read the most important content on any particular topic. So we built a thing called Topic Tracker, and I'll show you a short video that explains it.
Staying informed about complex topics is essential to making an impact and getting ahead. But it's not always easy to know where to start or how much of a topic you've already covered. FT Topic Tracker takes care of all that. It's designed to help you track and boost your knowledge on a given topic. Built in collaboration with Crux, it brings you an effective and effortless way to quantify the impact of your reading, to better understand where you spend your time, and to hack your research productivity. Topic Tracker measures how much of a topic you've already read and how much you have to cover. Watch your topic coverage grow as you read. Reach 1,000 points, and you've read all the FT's key coverage on the topic at hand. Topic Tracker recommends your next top reads, personalized to help you progress. The number of points earned varies from article to article based on an analysis of their content. You'll be guided towards our most comprehensive, need-to-know articles based on what you've already read. We'll show you information you haven't seen before, so you're not wasting time on what you already know. Topic Tracker encourages you to stay in the loop on topics you care about by quantifying what you've missed while you've been away. And it helps you get back on track by showing you the best articles published since your last visit. Tracking and increasing your coverage is easy. You'll find Topic Tracker on most article pages, on topic pages, and in MyFT. Whether you're focused on building your knowledge for the long term or need to familiarize yourself fast, use Topic Tracker to make your reading count. Get started now. Go to ft.com/Topic Tracker.
Now, Topic Tracker shows us two important things. So by helping people understand how much new information there is in a particular article, what we managed to show is that we were encouraging people to read more content. What we showed was it drove engagement, so much like MyFT in the first place, which this is closely related to, and Speed. The increase in RFV for people who use Topic Tracker was 15%. It also shows us what happens at Christmas, which is basically everybody stops reading the FT, which is fine. They come back afterwards. But it also showed us the value of not just understanding the data, but also understanding what our customers felt about a particular feature or functionality that we had built. Because when we first built it, it made them really, really angry, which is not what we set out to do. Because we'd called it a thing called Knowledge Builder. And what our subscribers told us when we spoke to them was, how dare the FT tell me how much knowledge I have on a particular topic? Because they understand that we can see what they've read on the FT, but we don't know what they've read in trade journals, we don't know what we've read on other publications. So then we were in a bit of a quandary, because we'd built a feature that drove engagement. Engagement drives revenue, and therefore is valuable to the FT, but it was making people angry. And making our valuable subscribers angry is not a great place to be. And we were on the verge of giving up, because it's okay to fail. Failing is absolutely fine, and you should be able to pull the plug when something isn't working for you. But we gave it one more shot, and we talked to our readers again, and what was coming through was this concept that what they wanted to understand is, from an FT's perspective, had they read the right content on any particular topic? So changing it from the kind of slightly patrician Knowledge Builder to Topic Tracker really, really changed how people felt about it. So initially, more than half of our readers were negative about it, and then we changed it to Topic Tracker, and more than 2/3 were positive. Exactly the same feature, worked in exactly the same way, with a slightly different name, then did two things. It made our customers feel like they were getting value out of the things that we had built, but it was also driving engagement. And the feedback immediately changed from phenomenally negative to massively positive. So understanding the data is really, really important. Understanding whether it's driving value for your business is really, really important. But at the heart of it, you have to understand what your customers want and what your customers need. You need to solve problems that your customers have, and then you have to go back and talk to them and check that the thing that you have built is both driving the metric and the value that you want, but is also making them feel like they get benefit out of what they did. Now, recently, we've been tweaking our approach to engagement because initially what we've been doing is focusing all our effort on those borderline engaged people who were reading maybe 7 or 8 articles but could be reading 9, because by making them engaged subscribers, that's where all the value was. And that is extremely valuable to us. But our question is there value in finding people who are already highly engaged and making them more engaged? Does that drive any metric and any value, any business metric that we really, really care about? And the answer, luckily, is yes. Because if you can move people up the engagement segments, if you can find people who are highly engaged and increase their engagement, you can increase their tenure and therefore their residual lifetime value. What they're worth to you at the FT goes up, not just for the borderline engaged, but for the people who are already highly engaged. So what we wanted to find out was, what is the value? How much is that worth to us if we can move people up the engagement segments from engaged into advocates? And we've been looking at individual features to see what they've done for us. So on the top right-hand corner of that mobile phone, you can see a little tiny green dot. And what that little tiny green dot tells you is how many articles you've got left to read in MyFT. And now any of you who have a mobile phone will know that notifications are almost irresistible. You cannot help but tap on them. And when people do tap on it, they go to MyFT and they see more content that is directly relevant to them. And then we looked at what that did to the lifetime value of those different segments, the borderline engaged and those people who are already advocates. And what we could show was that the revenue potential, the lifetime value that we could get out of those customers increased. And that little green dot is actually worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to the FT. And it's a little green dot that keeps on giving, because although we built it last year, we get new users this year, and it carries on delivering value without us having to do anything at all into the years to come. But it also really helps us understand what our development effort has done for the business, and where we ought to double down and do more, and where we ought to admit where we got something wrong and do something different. Now, the whole business is organised for success at the FT, and this is a digital transformation conference, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we organise ourselves and how that has changed over the years in order to make ourselves successful. So, back in 2012, in the legendary Olympics year in London, technology had no board representation at the FT. Product and tech were in different parts of the business. That's very common. You'll have a CTO organisation that has technology, and you'll have a product organisation somewhere else, sometimes under marketing, sometimes under a chief operating officer, and that was the case at the FT. They were in different parts of the organisation. Funding was very much delivered by funding programs and features, and there was a very, very heavy stakeholder management process. People, the engineers and the product managers, were spending their entire time talking to people about what it was that they wanted, and less time building stuff. If you wind forward to today, that's completely changed. We have a single product and technology organisation which I run, and I'm on the board of the FT, and I'm a vital part of making sure that we build the right things in order for the FT to be successful. We run with empowered teams who have devolved responsibility. Their responsibility is to take a target like drive engagement or the number of engaged users by a particular point, and it's the job of those teams to work out the best way to go and do that and deliver it. And investment, most importantly, is managed by outcomes and not by features and functionality. It's not the job of the board to define what projects that they want to fund. It's the job of the board to set the targets, and it's the job of the teams to work out how best to be able to deliver those outcomes. So we concentrate on building outcomes and not features. The teams are not set out to build a new website. They're given the task of drive engagement, to increase ad viewability, for example, or to increase customer satisfaction. They have outcomes to do, not features. We concentrate on delivering milestones and not dates, so it's about reaching a particular outcome by a particular time, but not about what features and functionality you're going to build by any particular date. Concentrate on behavior. You're trying to change behavior. You're not there to deliver new features. MyFT is a really good example where MyFT drove engagement. Therefore, what you need is more MyFT users. Your benefit is in getting more MyFT users and not in building more features and functionality for MyFT itself. Think about what behavior you're trying to change, not about just continuing to ship features. And all of this is driven by hypothesis-driven development. So all the time I've been talking to you about our hypothesis was that a more personalized experience would drive engagement, that a faster site would drive engagement, or helping people understand where they stood on a particular topic would drive engagement. That's your hypothesis. And then testing that using multivariate testing to see if the things that you have done are delivering the outcomes that you really, really care about. So we're organised around delivering outcomes like a drive in engagement. But the really, really vital thing about understanding your North Star metric as a business, it means that you can all start to head in the same direction. I've talked in detail about how the product and technology team drive engagement, but the entire business is focused on increasing the number of engaged users. So if you're working in the marketing team, your mission will be to increase the number of engaged users, and you'll work incredibly closely with the product team to decide which features and functionality to push or what stories to promote to users in order to drive their engagement, and then measure whether that's working. And the really important thing to remember is that we are a publisher. The product is the content. People continue to get value out of the FT because of the highly valuable content that our very talented journalists write. And similarly, our journalists are very, very focused on driving engagement. And the reason why having a North Star metric is so important is it helps you head in the direction that you want to go in and increase your forward velocity. But most importantly, what it also does is it fits very closely with our mission. Our job is to help successful business people become more successful by helping them understand the business context in which they are doing their business. And the sorts of content that drives engagement is the really, really high value stuff. It is the opinion pieces, it's the big reads, it's the really exclusive content that you can't read anywhere else that helps people get value out of their subscription, helps them continue to be engaged, therefore drive RFV, drive engagement, reduces churn in the business, and that really is the secret to how we got to those 1 million paying subscribers a year ahead of schedule. Thank you very much. So I'm really happy to take questions. I've been warned that it's really early in the morning and everybody might be a bit tired and not very, very chatty, but I'd love to answer a couple of questions if people had anything they wanted to know.
Hi.
Hello.
I was just wondering what kind of tools you use mainly to measure engagement. Use internal tools or like third-party tools?
So we have our own internal data platform that we use to measure RFV. When we set out on this journey, a lot of the tools on the market wouldn't tell you at an individual customer level what people's activity was. We measure everything. You know, every single click, every single engagement, every single click on an email, and that is an individual metric. And at the time, the big data products would be able to tell you what your base was doing, but wouldn't be able to tell you what individual customers were doing. Now that has changed in the last. When we looked we looked again last year. There are some interesting products out there on the market which are now focused on driving subscription businesses. Because if you know anything about publishing, you would have seen that lots of publishers are moving towards a subscription business, but also lots of businesses are moving towards subscription because having a subscription business gives you reliable, recurring revenue, which is a very, very nice way to do business. It's hard, but if you can drive that relationship, and you can drive membership or you can drive some kind of subscription business, it's a very, very lucrative business to be in. And so the data platforms have responded and now will produce platforms that will help you do that particular individual customer level metric.
Good morning. I'm here.
Hi.
When you created MyFT, did you consider that may be creating a filter bubble for your readers?
It's a really good question, and our readers tell us all the time that they are scared of being in a filter bubble. The events of the last couple of years since 2016 has really highlighted the danger of politically or financially being in one of those filter bubbles. And so the FT view is massively important, and if you go to ft.com, a small element of it is personalized, but the rest of the site is telling you the FT view on what's important. And time and time again, our readers have told us that they're scared of filter bubbles, but also that they value the FT's view on the world and what they need to know. So it'll never be the case that you will have an entirely personalized FT because of that danger. But will we do more personalization so we can help people get more value and use machine learning and other techniques to be able to find the right content for the right person at the right time? Absolutely. But it will always be balanced by the FT view because our readers have told us so clearly that's what they want.
Hi there. Did you use a digital maturity model to measure your organisation, or in terms of how did you measure the capabilities in terms of how you get there?
Did you say digital maturity model?
Yeah.
No. I think we've never tried that. I think we've really focused very closely on having a well-communicated mission and a very clear focus around a concentration on the subscription business, a very clearly communicated target, but also putting the data in the hands of the people who can make a difference. So, and then also hiring the right people in order to be able to do that. Obviously, with any business that has a heritage somewhere else, any legacy business is always going to have to continue to refresh, and particularly in my department where I'm hiring engineers and product managers, we are competing in a very tough market for talent, but also across the business, making sure that most importantly that the data is freely available and communicated clearly to people so that they can understand what they're there to do. But actually, in terms of measuring digital maturity, no.
So you're clearly aggressive in the digital transformation age. Obviously, this brief was excellent. I wanted to find out, though, how do you balance that with the regular printed subscriptions that certain customers still demand or want?
It's a really important point. So of those, so I said that 800,000 people were digital, 200,000 are still interested in print, and it's a very valuable product. Particularly the FT Weekend product is highly successful globally, and people do like and value that. And all the time we have to balance investment in our print business versus our digital business, and that is a struggle. I have some very ancient technology in the business that prints the paper, and we're in the process of particularly changing how we manage our membership platform for print, and that will continue to be an important part of our product portfolio for years to come. And managing those two competing forces is difficult. I think but some or if you look in the newsroom, we've changed how we structure the newsroom and how we manage so that we are genuinely digital first, but also putting out a really good paper every day. And any business that's going through disruption will know what that feels like, as to how when you have existing revenue, and the revenue from print is still very good for us, and we make a lot of money from print advertising, for example. That's always a balance as to how much you invest in the new versus the old. I think we've got the balance right, but we're always recalibrating it.
Sorry, I'm over here.
Hi.
To your right.
To my right. Hello, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
You just come out the ceiling, that's the thing.
So having all this data on what engages and what content engages, does that influence what the editorial team write about? Also, does it influence how they write, their style of writing for engagement?
The short answer to that is no, because we don't. We are a data-driven business, but we are informed by data. It doesn't determine what we write. I think where we do look in the data is really at the aggregate. Sometimes a journalist will say, "Did my article drive a subscription?" The answer is no. No single article drives a subscription. It's about habit. It's about habit forming. So you can't point to a single article and go, "Aha, that one drove a subscription." But what you can do is use data to measure things like, have you got oversupply in a particular area, for example, where you can use the data to say, there's oversupply here, but if you look over here, for example, in technology in Asia, there's high demand for it, and there's undersupply that then can help you rejig how you format the newsroom, for example. The newsroom also have a different metric which they look at, which is quality reads. So if you're a journalist, you want to understand, is it driving engagement? But as I said, you can't tell at a 90-day level which engagement is, which particular article was driving engagement. So they look at quality reads, which looks at things like time spent, the scroll depth, and we're able to show there's a relationship between quality reads and engagement, and therefore then the dashboards that we provide to the journalists will show whether something was a quality read or not, and therefore give them feedback on how they tweak that. But actually in terms of how they write, no, but the kind of topics upon which they write, absolutely. I think there was one more question in the middle here. Where's it gone? Hello.
Hi there, on your other side. Some really exciting, as you put it, habit-forming engagement tactics there. I was just thinking, do you imagine you're going to hit a bit of a ceiling in terms of how much attention you can capture, and will the metrics then perhaps have to evolve to kind of show users perhaps it's time well spent?
Yes, I mean, we think about ceilings all the time. We think about our model and whether we've reached the edges of, for example, our trials model. And, you know, time is a very, very precious commodity, and that's one of the things that things like Topic Tracker is aimed at, helping people understand if they're spending their time well, not just in terms of quantity. There is also, I think, one of the other really exciting things is the rise of voice assistants, autonomous cars. Those sorts of things create a new space in which you could have an FT experience. If you're doing the washing up, you could listen to an FT experience where you couldn't read it. So we're also thinking about not just how we judge the quality of the experience, but does technology create new spaces in which people can have an FT experience? At the point at which we're all swanning around London in autonomous cars, then that also could create some more time and hopefully a space for people to read the FT. Hello.
So this question may be similar to the one of the previous ones, but I love this. I love this feature of Topic Tracker. It's a fantastic example of gamification in action and driving engagement.
Yeah.
But has that had that particular feature? Did that have a cultural impact with journalists thinking, "Oh my word, I really wanted to write a +20 Topic Tracker article today, and I only hit 18"? Did it drive gamification internally as well as externally in a sense?
FT journalists are naturally quite skeptical people, and so actually the biggest thing that we had to do in terms of getting acceptance within the newsroom of Topic Tracker is that the algorithm would find the right articles. As a journalist, you feel you have a really good understanding, particularly if you're a specialist in a particular topic yourself. So we spend a lot of effort using journalists to track the effectiveness of the algorithm to see if it was finding the right articles. And once they felt convinced that actually that does feel like the right thing in their own experience, and they felt more comfortable about it, I haven't seen any evidence that they would then change their behaviour in order to write a +100. It's also very depressing when you never get to 1,000. It's always going down. Because we create new content every day, but I haven't seen any evidence of a change in behaviour like that. How are we doing for time? We're out of time. Thank you ever so much. That was really lovely questions. It's always nice that people have questions because it means that I said something interesting. So much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your day.